Have you ever noticed there's an entire generation that watched the world change, from rotary phones to artificial intelligence, and somehow never made a big deal about it? They didn't write manifestos. They didn't start movements about their identity. They just adapted, quietly, almost invisibly. They're called Gen X, and psychology has a lot to say about what's really going on inside their minds. Because according to research in developmental psychology, Gen X didn't just grow up in a different era. They were psychologically shaped by a very specific kind of emotional environment, one that literally rewired how their brains process trust, independence, and emotional attachment. And once you understand the science behind it, their entire personality starts to make a strange, almost haunting kind of sense. Let's start with something most people overlook. Gen X, those born roughly between 1965 and 1980, were the first generation of latchkey children on a massive scale. Millions of them came home from school to an empty house. No supervisión, no structured after-school programs, just a key around their neck and a locked door. Now, to an adult, that might sound like a small detail, but to a developing brain, it was enormous. During childhood, the brain is building what psychologists call attachment schemas, mental blueprints for how safe the world feels and how much you can rely on other people. When a child consistently experiences the absence of a caregiver during critical hours, the brain doesn't panic. It adapts. It begins to wire self-reliance directly into the nervous system. Independence becomes not just a personality trait, but a survival strategy encoded at the neurological level. This is why Gen X is often described as fiercely independent, skeptical of institutions, and emotionally self-contained. It's not attitude. It's architecture that here's the surprising part. This same wiring affected their dopamine pathways. Gen X grew up without algorithmic entertainment. No infinite scroll, no autoplay. Their brains learned to generate dopamine from effort-based rewards, building something in the garage, figuring things out alone, navigating the world without GPS or Google. Their reward system was conditioned on self-direction, not stimulation. Compare that to how later generations were raised on rapid feedback dopamine loops from screens and social media. And you start to understand why Gen X often feels like they're watching the modern world from the outside. Their neurochemistry is literally tuned to a different frequency. And then there's the cultural layer. Gen X came of age during a time of institutional failure. Watergate, the Challenger explosion, the AIDS crisis, rising divorce rates. They watched the systems their parents believed in collapse in real time. Psychologists call this institutional betrayal, and it leaves a deep mark on the brain's trust circuitry. The amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, becomes more skeptical, more guarded. It doesn't mean Gen X doesn't trust. It means their trust has a higher threshold. It has to be earned, not assumed. This is also why Gen X humor tends to be dry, sarcastic, and laced with irony. Neuroscience suggests that sarcasm is actually a cognitively complex behavior. It requires the brain to process two layers of meaning simultaneously. It's not a defense mechanism born from bitterness. It's a sign of high cognitive flexibility shaped by an environment where you had to read between the lines just to make sense of the world. Now, here's where it gets layered. On one side, this psychological profile is genuinely impressive. Gen X developed extraordinary resilience, adaptability, and emotional self-regulation without anyone teaching them how. They are, in many ways, psychologically anti-fragile. They didn't just survive instability. They built themselves around it. But there's a quieter truth underneath. That fierce independence sometimes comes with a cost. When self-reliance is installed too early, the brain can begin to interpret needing someone as weakness. Vulnerability starts to feel dangerous. Asking for help triggers the same neural discomfort as a threat. And so many Gen Zers carry a deep, unspoken exhaustion, the weight of always being the one who figures it out alone. That's not a flaw. That's a wound disguised as a strength. So if you're Gen X, or if you recognize this pattern in someone you love, understand this. You're not cold. You're not disconnected. You're not hard to read. Your brain was shaped by an era that demanded you grow up fast, trust carefully, and carry things quietly.